That's a pretty good check.
Okay, enough with the advice. I want cameras. There's a very good reason for it. Okay, so we're about to start. We'll have a few more people coming, I'm sure. Anyway, welcome first of all, of course, to the people who come in, have been with me for ages. We've been doing this for 2.5 years, by the way, apart from a couple of months here and there. And we've been touching a few things. It's always very, very light. Nobody has to think, etc., as you'll see soon. So what is good here with this crowd, apart from them all being very, very nice, is that it's a diverse crowd from many countries, in different fields, in humanities and science, which makes it very, very interesting, because we get people who give their points of view, often different from mine, but I can take it. And quite a bit of what I say you may not agree with, which is fine. If you all agreed, I would stop. That would be ridiculous. So nothing. Nothing is one of those things that are sort of mysterious thing that we see and we don't see, think about and not think about, but it's there, always there. Or is it? Every answer, every solution is a question. It leads on to everything is an is, and it leads to another is, which we must ask, is an is nothing. Okay, I've spent a long time on nothing. I set out the principles and examples in my book, Nothing Matters, a book about nothing. If there's anybody, I know there are a few people who still have not read the book in the world. If there's anybody here who's not read it, I suggest you do, not because I'll become rich from your pennies, but because I set out the principles there, what I'm going to talk about today, and I give examples in many, many fields, in history of zero, and art and religion and philosophy, of course, and they're examples that back up what I'm saying. Okay, so I can only touch on some cardinal points, and from there move on further than what I did right. I will tread a path between philosophy and science, hoping that what I say makes sense to both disciplines. So now here's a question. Is there such a thing as nothing? Nothing has to do with existence, I should imagine. So can we talk about non-existence? Parmenides, pre-Socratic philosopher, spent much of his time on nothing. He said nothing can't exist. He was not wrong, by the way. But others who came after, like, for example, Heidegger, Sartre, Hegel, Badiou, they fudged nothing. They didn't understand it. They then so endlessly waded through a somewhat mystical playground of made-up concepts and ideas, which I will now slam. So let me put it this way. Everything has a space around it. Everything, which could be objects, could be thoughts, and which is this thing around it is popularly considered to be nothing. If this nothing separates things from each other, and nothing has a function. Something that has a function cannot be nothing. So let's call this nothing, that is something, let's call it nothingness, right? That's very, very important. To differentiate it from nothing with a capital N, which is the absence of everything, including ourselves, right? After all, nothing is not the absence of everything, as we have noticed. So we have, this is very important. This is the principle that's running through this. The absence of nothing versus the absence of everything. Nothing, nothingness versus nothing. So nothing exists nothing, the nothing of absence of everything, nothing exists, make no sense if we don't make the distinction. Nothingness exists. Whether nothing, the absence of everything exists, we will get into. That's quite heavy. So I can show you nothingness, which is that between this and this, it's between everything and everything else. It separates them. If there was no nothingness between things, there would be the same things. Okay.
It exists as a concept in mathematics.
The rule here, after many months of chaos, is that I talk for a very, very short time, after which you raise your yellow hands and I will choose you to speak, and then we can discuss it. Okay, is that fair? Thank you.
Sure.
So, nothing, the absence of everything, presents an ontological problem. There's a problem with nothing exists. It's deep into an existential paradox. There cannot be nothing with the absence of everything, since we wouldn't be around to ask the question. It just doesn't make sense. So I can show you nothingness, but I can't show you nothing. Because if I show you nothing, I would be here to do it, and you would be here to see it. And that we would be immediately into what I can't explain, which is nothing, the absence of everything. Just to show you how mixed up some things were, this is not so bad. In Les Miserables, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, there is no such thing as nothingness, and zero does not exist. Everything is something. Nothing is nothing. Man lives more by affirmation than by bread. There's a great mix up there, and we'll see the mixing up all the way through as I go along. The perennial question: why is there something rather than nothing? That's a good question, I suppose, asked by Leibniz and later by Heidegger. Heidegger described this as the fundamental question of metaphysics. He was nuts because it's a stupid question. There has to be something in order for us to ask the question. I mean, why would you say why there's something rather than nothing? Because you're here. I mean, it's daft. Okay, putting it in a more scientific way, we could say we find ourselves here because everywhere else is inhospitable to life, which basically says we are here because we are here. That's also brilliant. Firstly, and this is an important point, is that there is something and nothingness, something and nothingness. So broadly, objects can be defined by spaces that separate them from each other and exist through time that unites them temporally, or Americans say temporally, something like that. Anyway, I mean by time. And so conversely, spaces are defined by the objects that separate spaces from each other and exist through time and unites them temporally. While there seems to be perpetual difference between objects and spaces, together they form elements of perception that manifest existence. So there can't be something without nothing. That's my point. There just can't be. There is something and there is nothingness in the sense that we don't see them at the same time, but that our senses, seeing, hearing, smell, touch, etc., move from one to the other. Now, nothing, the absence of everything, is a different kettle of fish. We cannot not be here. We cannot imagine not being here, which is equivalent to imagining being dead. There is the nothing, the absence of everything. In short, we can't imagine nothing, the absence of everything. We can't imagine it because we're here in order to imagine not being here. It's like imagining the state of being dead. Okay, now, while we can compare something and nothingness, its absence, there is no way of comparing one's being and one's own non-being and nothing, because I can't imagine my not being. I can't compare it with anything because I'm just not here. I mean, I'm not anywhere. All right. So the subtraction of an object does not leave nothing as an abstract, unattached entity, but rather part of the object. An object has to have nothingness, otherwise it's not an object. There is no viability to nothingness that has no object that is connected to the nothingness itself. So my contention is that nothingness is not a negative. This is a new one, a negation, but rather a positive. Nothingness is positive, it's not negative. The absence of something is just one aspect of what that thing is. Its being not is part of its being. This brings us to the difference between Newton's viewpoint and Einstein's that had huge repercussions in science. Newton was the end of a long line of thinkers, for example, Galileo, Kepler, Descartes, who referred to the notion of an empty space. Let me quote Einstein for a second. I quote, "If I let all things disappear from the world, then according to Newton, the Galilean inertial space remains, while according to my view, nothing is left." So what he's saying basically, when there are no objects, there is no space. Now, nothing, the absence of everything, cannot be an initiation of anything, and neither does it have potential for doing anything. So the problem of how the universe came into existence is shared by religion and science. We don't know how it came to being, we just don't know. Religions have God, which is easy, and science has the Big Bang. But the Big Bang asks a lot of questions. What was there before the Big Bang, which you're not allowed to ask? You're not allowed to ask either what was there before God. So we have to be careful. Science does not always have answers. And then we get the hubris of scientists who dismiss any talk of what they call non-scientific views. For example, Lawrence Krauss, who talks about a universe from nothing. Dismissing concern about what nothing is, Krauss writes, I quote, "I don't really give a damn about what nothing means to philosophers. I care about the nothing of reality. And if the nothing of reality is full of stuff, then I'll go with that." The point is, though, that nothing is not something. And a universe from something is nothing to shout about. So where is nothing in science? We don't make the distinction between nothingness and if we don't make a distinction between nothingness and nothing, we'll have more nothings than things. A vacuum, which was considered to be empty, isn't so at all, but seething with ultra short microscopic particles. A vacuum consists of nothingness, the absence of something, but it consists of positive energy. And there are many sorts of vacuums, each showing a different absence of something. There are in fact many types of nothingnesses, each with its own behavior. I can quote somebody, Isabel Garcia, who's a particle physicist. We're learning, there's a lot more to learn about nothing than we thought. And where is nothing in quantum mechanics, by the way? What is there before we measure where the particle is? Is a potential particle anywhere that is something? So a paradox arises when contemplating contemporary physics. The closer we seem to move towards a fundamental understanding of the universe, the further removed we become from the human experience. This brings into question the epistemological limits of human cognition. What is there beyond understanding? Now I ask myself a question that really threw me, and I wish I hadn't asked myself this question. Does nothingness include the absence of understanding? And that threw me, and I don't know how to answer it yet. Watch this space. Maybe at some point I'll be able to answer it. At the moment I can't. Let's move on to zero, which is considered to be nothing. But zero is the absence of something. There are different zeros. 5 minus 5 is 0. 3 minus 3 is 0. But they are different zeros. 1 is the absence of 5, not 1. The first 0 is the absence of 5. The second 0 is the absence of 3. Mathematicians don't like my saying this, by the way. So they are different zeros. Spaces are not alike, just like objects are not alike. The hole in a donut and the hole in a piece of Swiss cheese are not the same. The objects are different, and so are the holes. How are we doing with time? Not that good. Okay. Nothingness is always something. Nothing isn't. Nothingness takes time. Nothing doesn't. Nothing is something. However much you take away, you will always be left with something. You can't take anything away from nothing, because I've got nothing more to say, because you're just not there. There's nothing to take from nothing. There just isn't. In Sartre's book, Nothingness and Time, Being and Time, Sartre said he came into a cafe looking for Pierre, who wasn't there. It was Pierre who wasn't there, not the King of France. In Ernst Lubitsch's movie, Ninochka, somebody calls the waiter and orders a coffee without cream. The waiter says, "Sorry, we've run out of cream. We only have milk. Can I bring you a coffee without milk?" So the nothingness is part of the identity of the object. From Zizek, I heard a talk of his, in a movie, and I didn't catch the name. The girl asked the man, "Would you like to come in for a coffee?" The man replies, "There's a problem, I don't drink coffee." To which she says, "No problem, I don't have any." The result is not 0, it is a pure invitation for sex. What is not said is as important as what is said, actually more important. So Carlo Rovelli says that an object has property only when it reacts with something else. I disagree. Nothingness is that something else. That makes the object. Nothingness is the absence of things. Nothing, and here's a dodgy one, nothing is not the absence of anything or even everything. Now, I know I said that nothing is the absence of everything, but I can't really say that. For there to be an absence, there would have had to be something. So we have an existential problem with nothing, as you're beginning to see. In this same lecture I saw of Zizek, he talked about Hegel, who talked about the difference between he is dead and he is alive. So he is not dead, he is alive. But he is undead does not mean that he's alive. He's both dead and alive. This is the absence of being dead, which is not nothing. The absence of being dead is not nothing, but rather nothingness. The absence of being dead is always somebody else. Always somebody else. That is nothingness. Okay. I know we've got a fan of Hegel here, so I'm gonna give a brief something about Hegel. Sorry, Mark. In Hegel, the sublation has apparently contradictory implications of both preserving and changing, but eventually advancement. Now, what Hegel is trying to talk about is, in terms of concept, is both preserved and changed. Okay, so sublation can be seen at work at the most basic level of Hegel's system of logic. Okay, the two concepts, being and nothing, are each both preserved and changed through sublation in the concept of becoming. I say that cannot be right. Cannot be, because he's mixing up two concepts. he wants to talk about nothing, the absence of everything, but he basically talking about nothingness, the absence of something, because he can't make it fit into his view. So in my nothingness, where being and nothing are not synthesized into becoming, but together are being. Being is not the negative of nothing, and neither can nothing be preserved, since it's the absence of everything. Are you all still with me with the nothing business? Anybody confused? If you are, good, we're moving on. Existence, I say, can be defined by the possibility of it being an answer to a what is. Debbie, can you let people in? Existence can be defined by the possibility of it being an answer to a what is question. What is nothing? The absence of everything. This is unanswerable, since to answer it would make nothing something, and it isn't. Nothingness is something, nothing isn't, just nothing isn't. And even that is too much, okay? The urge to get to nothing is palpable, but impossible. Like science, art has been going towards nothingness while aiming for nothing. It is the beckoning of the abyss. We've got a black square that I talked about a couple of months ago, the search for absolute nothing, which is a black square, which isn't. That's not nothing, it's a black square. It's nothingness, it's the absence of color. And then we have Constable, and then Turner, and gradually they're moving away from art that we would call art to make it more and more and more nothing, such that to get to nothing is the aim. But they're never going to get to nothing. They will get to nothingness, and nobody can get to nothing. However hard we try, when we do get there, and we all will, we won't know about it. Okay. Now, nothing is not an abyss, as Heidegger posited. An abyss is something, and every something, even when it is nothing, the absence of something is grounded by something in order for it to be nothingness. So it's a lost cause. Roger Penrose said, I quote, "A universe in which nothing existed but light would be a universe in which nothing could perceive the passage of time. Time would literally no longer exist. If nothing could perceive that's the end of the quote. If nothing could perceive the passage of time, not only would time not exist, but nothing would exist, and the statement is nonsense. Penrose is wrong about everything disappearing in the universe. No observer, therefore what? The closer we get, the more we see of less. The further out we move, the less we see of more, until we get so far out that what we're examining disappears. It disappears not because of infinity, which is a concept that we can never get to, but of something becoming nothingness. It will never become nothing. While we are looking, it will never be nothing. Nothing is also a space where something has been. The lack of something is taken as evidence that a particular something had been there. Nothing applies to what had been there in the past. Otherwise, there is nothing to compare nothingness with. Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack." Hi there, Morris. You're late. Okay, I'm cutting myself short. I've got lots more to say about nothing. You'd be surprised how much I could say about nothing. You'd be really surprised. So just let me say a few words about Heidegger, who loved nothing, and nothingness was wrong all the way through. If I may be so bold as to say, anyway, I'm in charge. I can say anything. the supposed soberness and superiority of science becomes ridiculous if it does not take nothingness seriously. This is Heidegger, okay? Only because nothingness is manifest can science make what is itself into an object of investigation. Okay, the fact that Heidegger uses the term nothingness does not mean that he differentiates between the absence of everything and the absence of something. In fact, he uses nothing and nothingness, he interchanges them. He didn't really know what he was doing, or everybody thought he was a genius. He might have been, but not about nothing, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm only, in fact, he most definitely does not. For him, nothingness is the absence of everything, the absolute nothing. His contention then has less force than mine and makes less sense, if I may be so bold. Okay, differentiating between science and the absence of everything is meaningless in the sense that they can't be compared. There is no observer to make the comparison when the observer doesn't exist. Heidegger said famously, nothing noths, N-O-T-H-S. Since he's referring to the absence of everything, nothing, no, it doesn't. Nothing doesn't do anything. It doesn't noth, it doesn't not noth, it doesn't not the not noth noth. It doesn't do anything. Nothing isn't even an is. Nothing isn't it. Nothing isn't even an isn't. You've got to get that straight. It's the most important point. Nothing isn't even isn't. I can't put it stronger than that. All I can do is talk about it, and somebody will say, but you're using it. And I'll say, yes, I am. But there's other way I can get across. Not even keeping quiet will get across nothing. Although some of you might like that. Hegel, Mark, says that being is nothing. No, it isn't. So going rapidly to the end of nothing. Okay, nothing is not anything. Nothing is not anything that has disappeared from what it was. It never was. Because when there's nothing, what else can I say? It never was. Apart from it being nothingness for somebody else. Remember that for somebody else there is nothing, that somebody else is dead is okay. Well, not for anybody who cares, but you know what I mean. Nothing does not exist for the person who is dead. It exists for a person who's looking at somebody who's dead. But that's not nothing. That is the absence of life in somebody else. I hope you're all with me. Okay, so there can be no universe, or in fact anything that is outside of our imagination. Where things are, there we are as thinking beings. Even when things are not, it is we who think about the absence of things. So the question as to why there is something rather than nothing is a non-starter. If we weren't around, there'd be no one to ask the question. It brings us back to the tree in the forest quandary, which we all love. If a tree fell and we didn't know about it, did the tree fall? That is a non-question, folks. It's a rubbish question. A question that already gives an answer. If a tree fell, they already know it might have. If it might have fallen, then we know that it might have fallen. What's the big deal? But if we don't know that there are any trees, no tree fell. Somebody will kill me for this. All those with their hands up. I will say that again. If there are no trees, if we don't know there are trees, then no tree fell. I'm sure some of you don't like that. Okay, the fact that we ask the question proves there's something to ask about. All right, there must be trees, so we're going to ask about trees. We can't not ask about trees when we ask about trees, right? If there was nothing to ask about, we wouldn't be here to ask it. The fact that we are here proves that we are central and unique. In fact, we are so special that without us, there would be no universe. Now, because of Terry, I also always bring in AI. I have to, so that you're satisfied too, and you can give us a good answer. Would a robot ever see nothing? I mean, how would he react to nothing? The nothingness. He would only see nothingness, i.e., something. He wouldn't be able to see. The robot wouldn't be able to see itself not being, I think. And if a man in a road disappears behind a lamppost, would the robot see or know that behind there's somebody who can come out, which we as human beings would? And I know you can answer that question. So I think I will stop here and relieve your poor whatever is going on around there. And I'm ready to field questions, to be attacked, et cetera. Thank you for listening. And the first one is Ayala. You had your hand up a long time. Something must be bothering you.
Oh, no, something is cooking all the time as you talk. Thanks for the talk. And at the end, I'd like the name of your book. This is my first time, so I don't know. It looks, first of all, to say that we do deal with epistemology, with perception, and nothing. Unfortunately, our human comprehension and perceptions are short, are limited. We are not as hot as we think. So nothing seems to me, can be, as far as math, like 3 and 5, they will render a 0, but they are just symbols of the same thing, of 0. Now we can say, what are the symbols? Yeah, symbols are something. But the thing that they symbolize is the same, is nothing. We use language in different ways. So very often when we say, oh, this is nothing, we mean this is insignificant. And science too, when it talked about nothingness, very often it talked about maybe stuff that is insignificant to us, or that we don't understand, or that we cannot perceive. There is a lot that we cannot perceive outside and inside ourselves. When I say I, actually the I is a multiplicity. There are a lot of brain systems that thought and that together construe that concept for me. But the I is only convenient for social life or for life in general. So is the word nothing. Because every time we say something, there must be a boundary around it and something outside the boundary, because it's confined. So nothing is a word of confinement, or as you said, space. I agree with that.
I allow, which nothing are you talking about? You need to differentiate, because that's the whole point. As soon as you talk about nothing, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about nothingness, the absence of something, or nothing, the absence of everything? Because there is a border, and beyond the border is nothingness. I agree.
I'll say I'm looking at you at the spectacle now, at a picture that is transformed through my screen, and outside you, there is nothing, which means there is a boundary. When I see you, it is a specific spot on the screen that is not, doesn't exist outside of that image.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're right,
the
but so what? Outside of me is nothingness. That is what, and what separates you and me now
No.
is nothingness.
No, actually, you don't even see me. You see a picture, you see a spectacle of me.
Okay.
And so do I of you. And I'm not sure that it is even a spectacle of you. Because my brain is constructing a picture based on my experience before with faces. So there is a lot of degrees that we filter what we refer to as something. But in general, when, again, referring to
Nothing's happening.
your image here, and I don't know what shows this spot in pink and blue, say roughly, that that has a boundary around it. And what is outside, for convenience sake, I call it nothing.
That's good enough.
But-
No, I don't call it nothing. No, I call it nothingness. Let's not, it's got to be clear.
I don't know that it's nothingness. Maybe, don't you think that our perception misleads us?
Yes, I do, but that's nothing to do, nothing to do with the point of nothingness and perception. Perception is another meeting. But I agree with everything you say. But the point is, we're talking about what separates one thing from another, and that's not nothing.
Yes.
That's nothingness. That's what I'm calling it. And I was careful to explain that nothingness is the absence of something, and I'm not saying what that something is.
Right.
The absence of sound is nothingness. Silence is nothingness. Darkness is nothingness. They're all something. That's the only point I made. I agree with you, but
Okay, Ron, nothingness. I'll talk about nothingness for one more minute. And sound, for example, there are certain sounds that the human eye, a human ear cannot hear, but my dog can. So again, we are bound when we say nothingness, we are bound by our
of course
human ability.
I don't
Both
disagree.
to
I don't disagree with that at all. Of course, I don't care about what dogs hear. I care about what we hear. If we hear no sound, no, if we hear no sound, that there is no sound. There is no sound.
That we can hear.
That's it. I agree that we can hear. We can't hear it. There's no sound. But that's the old tree in the forest thing. I mean, we basically agree, right? Because I'm only talking about the things that are around us as humans. I mean, I don't know what snails feel. I don't know, and I don't care, because that's not part of what we're doing. It's an epistemological thing, as you said, and my whole philosophy is epistemological. All of it. Yeah. If you hear between the lines, you will hear epistemology all the way through. What we know, that's why I can't answer the question I ask myself: what happens if we don't? If our knowledge is beyond? I can't answer the question. Can we move on? I will definitely get back to you. There are lots of people.
Yeah, that my position is that negation or absence of anything do not mean to me nothingness.
I agree.
Or something.
Yeah. What? Wait. Now you floored me. The absence of something is not nothingness. Is that what you said?
No, the absence is only, might be, I don't know that. I don't know, because the absence of something to me, everything depends on my subjective ability to give it a name and perceive it.
I agree with you 100%. do not disagree with you in the slightest here.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, I know. But don't worry, we'll argue later. I mean, everybody wants to leap at me at the moment. I just want to mention one thing though, but I know that people who know maths do not like the fact that 1 0 is not like another 0. I know they don't like it, but tough luck, because if you have a basket of apples and a basket of oranges, and you take the oranges away, you've got a basket with no oranges. You take the apples away, you've got a basket of no apples. If you take 3 away from 3, you've got no 3, and you take 5 away from 5, you've got no 5. And I know mathematicians do not like that, which is okay. But I understand that, and I have had lots of rows about that, but that's fine. It's a philosophical thing. So thank you very much. I will fight with you again later, okay? Najib.
Thanks, Ron.
Please make it short, everybody, as short as you can.
Sure.
We've got a
Thank you
long night and nothing ahead of us.
Thank you so much for the sensationalistic presentation that you just bestowed upon us, which was symptomatic of how existence is like a tent supported by the pillars of confusion. When you talk about nothing, I was talking to my kids the other day, and they opened the basket and they looked in it and they were like, whoa, there's nothing there. I was watching a fight the other day, and the two proponents that were actually going to fight each other looked at one another vehemently, and one said to the other, you are nothing, I will crush you. So to me, it seems like the sign nothing. I mean, you're a linguist. You're a linguist, and when you look at the word nothing, you look at it in terms of it being a sign. And what is the definition of a sign? It's a thing that stands in for something other than itself. So it's part of a story. And what is that story? That story is existence. So to me, since nothing is a sign, and signs are part of existence, and by definition, the definition of a sign is contradictory, which exacerbates confusion, it seems to me signs have a spiritual nature to them. And when you start talking about the essence of reality in terms of it being spiritual, you can't talk about it in any coherent sense. So you start to talk past each other, like what just happened right now. My definition of nothing versus your definition of nothing. No, this is nothingness. This is nothing. No, this is the nothing I mean. So it seems to me that this kind of kicking the ball back and forth between you and the other person seemed to me a form of a technique, a ritual of some sort, whose sole aim is the construction of sacred space. So again, nothing is being used spiritually or psychologically as a means to an end. And what is that end? Is the construction of sacred space. That sacred space is a feeling that for a moment makes us feel more than what we actually are. So nothing is part of a story. Now, my question to you, would there be a concept of nothing had there not been a story of creation, a story of origination that the Mesopotamians bestowed upon us thousands of years ago?
There's a question. Would
would there have been meaning coherence? I mean, this concept of nothing is suffused into language, and it seems like it's a complexified projection of primal sensations and bodily emotions that we once felt millions of years ago when we were traversing the savannah, on the trees or on top of the mountains, using symbols or using artifacts to kind of maneuver the space time continuum that we were faced with to get ourselves outside of the realm of danger.
Okay.
When you look at the Babylonian story, for example, let me just make a correlation here, and then I'm going to stop.
I prefer
just
not.
one more thing. If you look at the scientific explanation of the Big Bang, the story of the Big Bang, it has very high similarity to the story the Babylonians first came with thousands of years ago, which talked about the creation of the universe, something out of nothing. To them, it was about conquering the realm of chaos, the realm of pollution. And that realm was embodied in the sea serpent. So every year, they'd go and they start talking to each other about stories of conquering the sea monster. That element of pollution that made them feel uneasiness. You would call it
Okay.
nothingness, you would call it nothing. So without the story of creation, of origination, there would be no such thing as nothing, something, anything, which all of them seem to be about thing denial, about meaning denial. Without these complexified symbols, which are vintage points for orientation towards the sacred, the only thing that would be meaning, coherence, and universal peace. And thus ends my catechism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are in 2022. The fact that things happened 2,000 or 5,000 years ago has nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's a very nice story.
It has everything to do with you.
Had nothing to do with me whatsoever.
It's the same story.
Just like etymology has nothing to do, very little to do, by the way, of what words mean today.
It's the same story of creation.
But I mentioned creation. I said specifically that creation is a story, and it's the same story as the Big Bang, if you want. I said it, so you're not arguing with me, you're agreeing with me. But since we are in 2022, why and what we're doing with nothing and nothingness, we've come a long way. We've had a lot of philosophers who've been talking about nothing, and there's a reason for it. And there's a reason why I said that I have to talk about nothing, even though I can't talk about it. I can't, because it's non-existent and I exist and you exist. I can't talk about it, and you say to me, but you are. I know I am. There's no other way that I can get through without using language. So we use language.
It's archetype mythology. It's all archetype mythology based on the systematic relations of pharmacon. It's the same symbols of force, power, and control, symbols of confusion.
No, okay.
We're just mutilating each other's powers of mutilation.
Okay, I've heard
as modes of orientation towards the sacred.
Okay, no. Leave the sacred alone. Do me a favor.
It's all about the sacred.
Okay. Leave the sacred.
And the profane.
Leave the sacred alone. There's no sacred here. There's no spiritualism here. We are talking about nothingness.
Existence is all about spiritualism.
Okay. I know it is. In this particular story of mine, it isn't. Okay. So leave sacred out. There's nothing sacred.
How is it not, though? How is it not about spiritualism?
There's nothing about sacred in anything I said. And I don't know what
you trying to prove your point is you orienting yourself towards an element of sacrality. You're desacralizing me.
Okay, Najib, I've heard all this before online, and it's very annoying. There's no sacred here.
Of course it's annoying. It's profane to you. That's why.
Okay, I agree. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. It has nothing to do with what I said whatsoever. I am the fact that we're using the language is a problem, and I've said it's a problem, and we have to get past it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And there is, as far as I can see, a difference between the absence of something and the absence of everything, whatever we believe in. Thank you very much, Najib. Saket, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Saket.
Hi, Ron.
Hi there, Saket.
I'm not going to give my opinion on nothing, but I want to introduce a different point of view on nothingness and a couple of pointers. I want to draw from non-duality, which talks about the reality of the universe and the fundamental nature of everything. And it says that everything springs out of nothing. So nothing is everything. And the reason they call it nothing, because there is no way to determine the quality of that fundamental source. That's why they call it nothing, because in order to identify something, you need to have a comparison. You need to have a comparative structure. You need to have a reference point. But for that, nothing for that resource, for that source of everything, there is no reference point. That's why they call it nothing. So if I have to give an example, suppose you are a drop in the ocean, and the entire ocean, you are an observer. it's like nothing is observing itself. So the observer is the observed. So this is the oneness that these people experienced. These people basically experienced the fundamental nature of this universe within themselves, and they saw that the observer is the observed, and this is what they call nothing, because there is no reference point to identify it. So nothing is everything and something.
Okay. Obviously, I don't. That's how can I put it gently? I don't agree with that. I understand that, and I know where that comes from. But my point is that nothing, the absence of everything, cannot have anything that comes from it, because it's nothing. You can't say on one hand it's the source and tell me that it's nothing. If it's a source, it's something. It is a problem.
Of course it is something.
Oh, okay, good. So we agree. It's something.
So I'm saying it is something and everything. I'm not saying it is not, it doesn't exist. It exists. There is an existence.
Okay.
And this existence is looking at itself. I said the observer is the observed. The something is nothing, which is observing itself. And the reason it is not able to identify itself, because there is no reference point. For the drop to identify the ocean, there is no reference point. There is no different thing to differentiate the ocean. You know, for that drop, ocean is nothing, because drop is a part of ocean.
Well, we are part of
It's
humanity. We are part of humanity, and we are so.
So that fundamental source of everything is nothing, and it has no. We can't give it a quality because we don't have reference points.
Source of everything cannot be nothing, because then nothing would be something. You have to use another word.
It is something.
Okay,
and
so
everything.
So it's not nothing.
That's why it is nothing, because it is everything.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Let me just point out that there are lots of people without, I'm sorry, a lot of people without cameras on. Jenny, Dara, Lorna, Mike C, Joanne, SJ. Could you please put your cameras on? I'd be most obliged. I would really thank you. Look, I asked so nicely. Does it help if I ask nicely? No. Okay. So thank you very much, Sakit. I know where you're coming from. It is not my it's not my sort of thing. I understand where you're coming from. I can't argue with you. It's
non-duality.
It's no, it's okay. It's a belief.
No, it's not a belief. People have realized it, and they have documented their realization.
I haven't realized it.
I know we have not. That's why we are arguing. Otherwise, we would not be here.
Okay, fair enough. No, but I know you would object. The moment I said that's a belief, I knew you would object. Why do you object when I say it's a belief? It's not a fact. You're not telling me it's a fact, are you?
I'm saying it's a fact for people who have realized it, but for people like us who are arguing, trying to intellectualize this, it's a belief.
So for people who believe in God, God is a fact, right?
If they have realized God, they will not believe in it. Once something that you have realized, you don't have to believe.
Wait a minute. Somebody who believes in God.
That person has not realized God.
Because he does not believe what you believe?
No, because he has to believe in that. The truth does not need belief. The fact does not need belief.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. I'll have to leave you on that one. I'll come back to you. I'm with you. I'm not arguing with you, but I don't want to say it's a belief, and I don't argue with beliefs, but I won't say that because it will annoy you, and I don't want to annoy you.
No, you can say
it's a fact.
You can annoy me.
Did you say it was a fact just now?
Yes, it's a truth. It's the truth.
Okay. Well, those who've been with me for a while know what I think about the truth. But okay, fair enough.
Well, which belief is the truth?
1 second, please. I
Not a
need
belief.
Brett. Welcome, Brett, to our little party.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So the main thing that confuses me about nothingness, I read Jim Holt's book, Why Does the World Exist, which was excellent, except the only chapter I thought that wasn't good was the one on nothing. He doesn't really examine it too thoroughly. He just gives it a cursory examination. But definitely, I think that to figure out what nothingness is or isn't, I guess it would be isn't, you have to look before the universe existed, because the universe isn't infinite. It's 14 billion years old, roughly. So that begs the question of what there was before the universe, which would have to be nothing. That's what one would logically think, but if that were the case, there would have to have been nothing for infinity minus 14 billion years, roughly, which is the length of time and is not nothing. But there's no other way to put it. If there was nothing before the universe started, which I think everyone would have to agree that there was nothing before the universe started, because the universe
One
is not infinite.
second. When you say everybody has to agree, you have to include me in that. And I don't agree, because if there was nothing, then nothing could have come from that. There couldn't have been a universe if there was nothing. In the absence of everything, that's a very important point I made. There could not have been nothing. There's something there we don't understand, but it's not nothing. Nothing cannot
But then the
produce
universe
anything.
would be infinite.
I
The
don't know.
universe would be infinite if that were the case, or
I
at
don't
least
know.
something would be infinite, but something can't be infinite, because I don't know what philosopher
agree.
said it, but
I agree with you.
uh,
I agree with you.
you know, an infinite number of days would have had to have passed to get to the present one, which is obviously impossible. So there, you know, the universe can't be infinite. Even something can't be infinite. So there had to have been nothing at one point, I think, but then that doesn't make sense, because infinity minus 14 billion years of nothingness, that's a length of time. And then it suggests that maybe there could have been a few more billion years of nothingness. And in that case, the universe would be 10 billion years old instead of 14 billion years old. It doesn't really make sense.
Let's just talk about nothing, not nothingness. Why am I so insistent on nothing not existing is to put some sense into what people have been saying for thousands of years. And they've been messing around with nothing and mixing them up. And because they've been mixing them up, they can say anything. They can do all sorts of mystical stuff and putting in nothing, nothingness, doesn't agree. No, I want to put a stop to that. I want to say nothing cannot create anything, because it's nothing. If it was something, then it could create a universe. But if it was nothing, then no universe could have come from it. That's what I'm saying. And when they talk about quantum mechanics and things popping out very quickly and all that stuff from that's just fiddling the books. Because either there was something, there was energy, which is something, or of some sort of something, but there wasn't. Then don't call it nothing. Then call it something. There was something there. God, energy, something. I don't know. Whatever. That's my very, very strong point. And I keep on making it again and again, because people don't like to think of nothing, because they like to think that nothing can create something, and it can't. If it could, it wouldn't be nothing. That's my big point tonight. It's a difficult point, because we have to think of nothing, which we can't, and that's a huge problem. We can't think of what I'm trying to explain, because I can only explain it in words. As soon as I put it into words, we have something, and it's hugely problematic. And I told you this is not a walk in the park this evening, in case anybody thought it would be.
I agree that nothing can't create something. I have heard people, you know, I try to answer the question, why does the universe exist, by saying that, you know, quantum particles form spontaneously. But right, that's not from nothing. That's from empty space, which is not nothing. But if you're saying that there was always something, that would mean that there has been something for an infinite amount of time,
didn't.
right? Which isn't possible.
I didn't say that. I just don't know. I can't work it out. I don't think there was something eternal. It's a religious thing. That's what, if you say to a religious person, what was there before God, he'll say, well, God was always there. That's a belief. So I wouldn't argue. I don't argue with belief. I mean, what can I say? So I don't know the answer to that. It happens that I do not know. I do not know some things, and I do not know how the universe came about. Apart from the fact that something was there that triggered it off, and it wasn't nothing. That's my point, and it's a difficult point. I know that. Anyway, thank you very much, Brett. We'll get. Sure, we'll get back to you soon. So that leaves. Hi there, Mark. You're now going to go for me, right? Hegel. Go on.
I wasn't muted the whole time. Interesting. Well, I'm not here to abstractly negate you because that's not sublation. I'm here to sublate you. So I think I think the determinations you make and the distinctions you make are actually pretty useful. I don't think many people make the fundamental distinction that your principle that I think you're thinking is new is this distinction between nothing, like with a capital N, nothing, and then nothingness. And I think Hegel beat you to it, though. So I think the concept of capital N, nothing, which is not nothing in regards to anything else, including the negation of everything, because that's how Hegel gets to this kind of pure nothing, or this capital N nothing, is that he says you have to negate everything you think you know, like Descartes tried to do, but you have to go one step farther than Descartes, and you have to negate yourself too. And then you really are negating everything. But then you have to negate even that negating to really get rid of everything. And when you get rid of that negating, that absolute negation, when you cancel that negation of absolutely everything, then you're canceling the canceling of everything. So it's like canceling its own reference point, even to the everything that it's canceling.
Mark, can I just make one point here? All good points, except that you keep on saying you do this and you do that and you do that. But there you are, and there's no nothing, you're there. So negating, you're the one who's doing it. You're still there. You can negate it 100 times. You're still there. Where is the nothing?
So that's why when you negate even yourself, when you go past Descartes, you're not there to do the negating anymore. It's just the absolute negation.
Then we're dead.
You're pretty much dead, yeah.
No, not pretty much. You are.
Well, there's two things.
There's no
that
pretty
happen.
much dead. You're either dead or you're not. Okay.
You came prepared for me. Well, it gets back to this.
I've been doing nothing for a long time.
Well, it gets back to this weird paradox between this objective process and this subjective process. And at least Hegel is saying, just get rid of the subjectivity. And the thing that gave rise to you to be subjective in the first place is just what you're getting in touch with, even if you're dead. So if you're completely dead, maybe there is an absolute moment of nothingness. And he says that those types of things might exist, like a world of complete irrationality that doesn't follow the triad and all this logic that he says, that world might exist. It's just meaningless to talk about it because you can't say anything.
What did you say about being dead, by the way? Just out of
it might exist, but the paradox is that
if it exists, it's not dead.
Well, the thing is, if you existed in the first place, there's something outside of you that might have happened. And Hegel is saying, well, to get back to that thing, get rid of yourself and try and repeat what happened before you even existed. And so I think this is what he's trying to say by this like objective negation, is that when you think you're doing it, like when we're basically repeating it, because you can't really negate yourself completely. If you do, you die and you end up in nothingness. But he's saying, even if you do that, something weird happens, where in an objective sense, even without you there, it starts up again. And this is how he says he does it. It gets past the contradiction.
What starts again when you're not there?
The thing that gave rise to you in the first place to die.
You mean you come to life?
No, you're not there anymore. It brings its own self to life out of nothingness. So what I'm trying to say is this gets back to what the other man was talking about with observance. It's the self that is not subjective or mind. So it's the thing that has no reference point objectively. So what I think you're using with the term nothing, I think the closest thing to it, at least in Hegel, is indeterminacy. So in terms of indeterminacy, there might be a pure nothing in which there's just literally nothing, which gives rise to not a something, but you can't say anything about it. But we're in the world where you can say something about it, at least even in an objective sense. So I think what this other guy was saying before me, I think is more true, in that the thing you're calling capital N nothing is a nothing which is ising, it is there,
Then it's
but
not nothing.
it's not a something that you can know. It's so indeterminate because it doesn't have anything else to compare itself to. So it's sheer indeterminate is, but it's not an is you can know what it is. It's not something you put into words. So you're right to say, as soon as you try to put it into words, you can't. You lose it. But the way that he says you lose it is strange. And I think this is where Hegel's very novel. And he gets past the nothingness that you're talking about. He says that to get past the nothingness that you're talking about, this sheer indeterminateness in trying to know itself, which is not trying to know itself, it's just observing itself. It's that referenceless point of pure nothing. But in just being itself, whatever it is as nothingness, it somehow turns itself into pure nothing again. Like there's like pure being is the indeterminateness. It's the ising of pure nothing. But as soon as it tries to is itself, it turns into pure nothing. But that moment of the second pure nothing is what you're calling nothingness. It is the nothingness that is a part of a being. But the contradiction is that the being that it's a part of in the beginning is not a being that you can know anything about because it's indeterminate.
Who is going through all of this?
Huh?
Who is going through all of this? Who?
Pure thought itself, the observer, which is not you. There's no subjectivity there. It's just the pure referenceless nothing. Capital N nothing. But remember, to even say that there's a nothing, capital N nothing, you're comparing it to something.
I'm not.
So Hegel's saying it's even less than that.
No, I'm not. No, I made the point. I am not comparing nothing with anything. I can't.
Then it's indeterminacy.
No, it's not. It just isn't. It isn't. If it's indeterminate, that means that it is being indeterminate for somebody.
And I'll say to you, maybe you're right.
You're
right. But that gets back to my point. Like, there's nothing. It's not useful. There's nothing more we can say about it.
Well,
all that we know is that it does somehow turn into something. And the way he explains how to do that, once we accept that there might be this nothing, but we have to accept this paradox that we're here. He says, okay, let's accept that there is this nothing where we cancel everything. We cancel the canceling. Then you can't say anything more about it. So why dwell there? He says, well, then how do you explain this paradox that we're here? And he says, well, at least we'll start there. And he says, how you get from that state to this is this weird paradox between indeterminacy and pure nothing itself. And you're like, well, how can there be an indeterminacy and a pure nothing that's there's nothing to turn into anything? And he says, that's the speculative moment where pure being is pure nothing and pure nothing is pure being. And he's saying it's a distinction that's no distinction. And I just want to get to the pure becoming comment you made before, is that you're right. When you talk about pure becoming as this distinction between pure being and pure nothing, he says, you're right. You can't have that as immediate. He says, what you're talking about makes sense before pure becoming as that movement of sheer pure being into pure nothing, because the connection between the two is not explicit yet. When you make that connection explicit, that's when they become distinct, and that's when you get pure becoming. But the moment right before that happens, the connection between them is implicit. That's why they're actually the same thing exactly, but they're different. So he's saying that's why you have to hold the paradox of the pure nothing with the nothingness. It's flipping into itself. It's like a pure empty intuiting of the nothing of itself is nothing. But when you realize that there's two things that are nothing, he says you get into this weird state of something is becoming, but it's not a something that is a something. The something that you're talking about is a sensuous something of sound. That's way, way, way later. he says this, the pure something, that's not even a something of something, just pure something in its nothingness is other. But he's saying this is way before that. This thing of pure becoming is prior to that stage. And he says this is prior to even realization itself, because no reality exists yet. And just the explication of the pure being indeterminacy, the capital N nothing into the nothingness, the pure nothing, is not even existence, because existence isn't explicit yet. So he's saying that there's this weird process going on where you don't have something that's actually separate. It's all actually nothing as the self observing itself without you there. So I'm saying everything you're saying is right. Even the moment of pure nothing that doesn't do anything, he says, yeah, that's probably there, but you can't know it. So there's no point in talking about it. So he's just saying, once you accept that, the rest of it is still amazingly profound. And I think that once we do start talking about it as the nothingness part of being, we get into what you're talking about as nothingness. Oops. Did I just cut out there?
Thank you very much. I'm sure we're
I just cut out.
going to get back to you. Thank you very much. Yes, Richard. Hi.
Right. Hi there. I can't hear myself talk with these on. Nothing will come of nothing. Yes. I think the problem is that when we talk about nothing, we haven't really defined it. There's the concept of nothing and nothingness, and then there are the different ways we use it. And when Najib, I think it was Najib, was talking about the sacred and the profane, he was talking about one of those dichotomies of different pure forms, if you like, good and evil, black and white, and in this case, existence and nothing. And if you're going to do that, it would have to be intrinsic existence. And we are getting into religion. I'm afraid it's so long since I read Levi-Strauss that I can't exactly remember how the sacred and the profane went, cooked and raw or something. But what I'm saying is that if you start talking about it as a pure absolute nothingness and a pure absolute existence, you're moving into metaphysics. Whereas we exist, in inverted commas, in somewhere in between. We don't exist in the pure forms at all, if the pure forms themselves exist, which seems, they're concepts, they're not real. And so therefore, as far as we're concerned, pure existence and pure nothingness are really just empty words. And that's why he was talking about the linguistics involved. And
I know,
so,
you know what I think of all this stuff, but no.
Yes,
No.
I do feel that the two of you were talking at cross purposes, and the cross purposes are
That's for
partly
sure.
because the definitions aren't defined there.
No, I made it very simple. I really have made it simple. All I said was that the difference
It's
between
too big.
it's so simple. Really, you don't have to go crazy here. I'll show you how simple it is. There's a difference between the absence of something, like silence is the absence of sound, right? Close your eyes and it's the absence of sight, whatever. No problem with that. It's easy. I don't have to delve into that. The problem is the ontological problem of existence, of nothing. I agree with you. Now we get to huge problems. I don't disagree with you at all. You want to solve it through language, and I don't. Because as soon as we start with language, we're going to get into something else entirely. What we have is existence and non-existence. When there's non-existence, there's nothing I can say about it except use language. So I'm shooting myself in the foot just by talking about it. I agree with you, but there's nothing else I can do. I'm making it simple. I'm saying, let's look back over a few thousand years and see what went wrong. Why is it that people just can't get it straight? And the reason is because they didn't make the distinction. And I'm making it, and I'm making it simple. Nothing is a state of being dead. Nothing happens then to the person who's dead. Nothing. That's it. But the other thing, the nothingness, is what we all see all the time. It's how things exist. It's through the nothingness that things exist. It surrounds it. It separates one from another. Now you can make up things. You can do all sorts of stuff with that. That's fine. But that's the only point I made. It's an easy point, but it's not easy because people object. There's some problem with thinking about nothing, the absence of everything. Of course, there's a problem because we can't imagine it. There's nothing we can do about it. We cannot imagine nothing. We can't do it. Now, what you want to do is to use language in order to examine it, and we can't, because all you're doing is putting language in there. See, that's
But apart from language, we've only got maths, and in maths, say binary, you have to have a nothing, and if not the whole system, but it's an artificial system.
well.
Oh, by the way, if you think about it, on the negative side, you had to actually, you'd have two nothings if you actually followed the whole process. But to make it work, you have to only have nothing on one side, and which is the positive side. And that means that, say you're going up to 127 positive minus 128, because you actually have a negative -1 as the start. It's all artificial. It's all language. Our thinking is language.
Well, you know, I'm not that side of philosophy, and we can argue about this for a long time. But okay, I see your point. I know where you've been brought up. I know your
Yeah,
point.
we grew up within a mile or two of each other.
Yeah, but with different points of view. No.
Well, yes, exactly.
No. Fair enough. It's the old division between continental philosophy and analytic philosophy, and we won't meet on that. I mean, I know as soon as you come on, you'll talk about language. I know it, which is fair, which is okay. But it doesn't solve any problems except through scientific ways of showing that that's the way it goes. But it doesn't help us. We have problems here, which we have to try and solve.
But,
which we won't.
But part of that is why I, for instance, find some of the continental philosophers quite fascinating to try and follow them. On the other hand, you do get many English and American philosophers who quite as much a dichotomy with European philosophers as anything else we could mention. In other words, their thought processes go off in totally different ways.
I know that's part of the problem. Anyway, thank you very much, Richard. Okay. William, Bill. Can't hear you.
I don't want to commit a heresy, Ron, by bringing us back to the idea, as Richard suggested, that language is not something that refers to reality, but is a way of understanding each other. And that's the distinction you're talking about between continental and English, or British, or American, or Anglo philosophy. But the idea is that what's happening here is, I think we're making a reification mistake, where we're talking about cutting words in half. And we're talking about making distinctions that are based on the notion that words refer to things. And I don't think they do. I think words mean what they are used to say, not what they refer to. But the puzzles you're presenting are puzzles of reference, not puzzles of usage. And this idea that I'm cutting existence in half or subtracting this from that is a notion that I'm playing changing the meaning of words from usage to things. And I don't think they are things. I think they're conventions that we have for communication. And for that reason, I think we're really torturing ourselves with the idea that we can talk about the reality of language when we believe it's talking about reality, when we're really not talking about reality. We're talking about how words are not referring or are referring or can be used to refer to things. Now, I think my life gets a lot simpler if I use usage and borrow the idea from Wittgenstein that there's a language game going on, and it doesn't have the idea that reference is key, but instead it's a matter of the use of the language and the meaning is key. And so for that reason, I just wonder how much your assumption about the language of reference or the reference theory of language is responsible for the puzzles we're presenting. I'd love you to react to that.
I think that usage and reference are different words for the same thing, basically. I think that if we look back about how people were talking about nothing, and nothing is extremely important.
I agree.
I mean, really important. So what I said was basically is that there's been a mix-up of this one word that actually means two things, and that is usage. That is usage. If we're using it badly, we will continue to make we will continue to mess up what we're talking about. We'll continue to go into games about how things behave and what happens after death and all that stuff, because it's not really nothing. But so we get to a point where we're talking about what happened before the Big Bang. Now that is what is that? Is that usage? Is that reference? We need to answer the question, what happened? And we can't answer it because either we say there was something, fair enough, what was there? All right, it came from something. What was there before that something? Then we're stuck. We're immediately stuck because at some point somebody will say there was nothing. Now, is that meaning? Is that reference? What are we pointing to? When we point at nothing, what are we pointing to? We're not, because we are here.
No, I understand that. All I'm saying is that when we talk about referring to nothing, we're acting as if it's something to be talked about in terms of difference, right?
That's the point. That's the difficult part of everything I'm saying, is that I have to talk about something that we can't talk about.
And that's basically why Wittgenstein said, don't talk about what you can't talk about.
Well, Wittgenstein was wrong.
I know that. And I agree with that you believe he's wrong and I believe he's wrong. But the idea that he talked about usage as the meaning of the word as its use in the language is far better than the notion that the meaning of a word is its reference.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm coming across puzzle after puzzle after puzzle that language does not solve, and just making language in some sort of mathematical way of looking at things doesn't help. It somehow we have to say, what is nothing? Now, what would Wittgenstein say? He said, we can't talk about it, let's not talk about it. Okay, it's
no, that's the earlier guy. The later guy would say, yes, nothing is a border between something and nothing. It's a basis for distinction in our usage of words. In other words, the boundary between a thing and its context is a matter of difference, and the differences between what is the object and what isn't the object.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough,
sense.
but it doesn't get us to the nitty gritty of nothing. That thing.
I'm sorry. I'm just wondering whether the nitty gritty of nothing is a function of a reification mistake. That's all I'm saying.
What are you saying again?
The question that you're raising is maybe based on a reification mistake, thinging the object of the word or the reference of the word, and it's not that way.
But I have
my experience. I mean, I'm just saying the reality is I don't look at words as references. I create You know, in my work, I see Anton Scalia making the same mistake when he talks about, I'm going down to the historical meaning of a word to cheat you out of a nice and a progressive theory. But the idea that reference is an infection, intellectual infection of a lot of stuff that is distorted when you consider that if we talk about usage, we can get along a hell of a lot better, because alternative characterizations are workable and they can appeal to an audience and they can say again, aha, it's a yes. And getting to yes is better than saying I get to the reference.
And how do we deal with nothing?
Because you see, in the context, if we said, look, something doesn't come from nothing, that's very interesting. And that's probably true. But what is the context in which it makes sense? Except in these puzzles.
But people, okay, but people have been arguing this for literally thousands of years. Are you saying they should not have done?
No, I'm just saying that there's a way of handling the issue that will give you peace of mind if you want it. If you don't, you can puzzle over it. But the assumption of your puzzle is that words refer to things, and they probably don't. That's all.
Okay. I'm glad somebody comes here for peace of mind.
Yes. I have to go. Thank you so much for everything.
Okay. Happy birthday to.
Okay. Mike, thank you.
Okay. See you next time, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
Okay.
Michael, welcome again. Good to see you, though I can't see you. There you are. Hi, Michael.
Well, yeah, now you can see me.
Now
but
I can
this is-
see you. Now you exist.
This is a good illustration to this discussion of nothing. When you don't see me, is it nothing that you see?
No,
Or you
nothing.
just don't see me?
No, I
So-
don't, nothingness that I see.
So I think that some before me already made this point that I want to further expand. That this all is related to our language and how we are using the terms. And the natural ambiguity of our language is what may cause these misunderstandings and disagreements about this. But if we accept, at least tentatively, that our language reflects our experience and what we know about human psychology, about neuroscience, and so on, then maybe this is where we have to look first. That we have some specialized circuits in our brain specifically dealing with detecting the differences. Most importantly, temporal differences, the changes, and also spatial differences, and from them all other kind of differences. And our brains are very good in this, in detecting the differences. But moreover, it's not any differences that we are interested in. It's the differences that matter. The differences between something of high value, or it can be negative value, something really dangerous, and between something that does not matter too much, or something different. And the way how our brains work is, as in computer science, probably a good analogy is like discriminator. So if it detects something that does not matter, well, it's tentatively like considered as nothing. Nothing in the sense that it's not something that matters at this given point of time. And not in absolute sense. So we run into many contradictions when we try to use the terms in some absolute sense as if this is really something real. But what is real to us, it's something that just does not matter right here, right now, or does matter right here, right now. That's what we always differentiate. And the same applies also to how the physicists see that. If your specialty is solid states physics, then for you vacuum is probably nothing, because it's not something that matters to you. But if you are interested in this ground vacuum states of energy and virtual particles, or in the fields that always exist even in a vacuum, then vacuum is something real and very interesting for you, because this is what you like to study and understand. So I guess my point that it's all relative. There is no such thing as really nothing, or even nothingness, or whatever how you call it. It's only there is something that, at least in the current context, is not important to us. Which does not mean that it's not important at all. It's just not important now. And if you take an extreme case when you are just not here, when you died, then since there is no you, then nothing is important for you. But this doesn't mean that nothing exists.
Whoa, 1 minute. When somebody's dead, you can't say that nothing's important for that person who's dead. There is nothing. So what you just said, you're implying something that I specifically said no to, that nothing is nothing. That's all I can say, and that to the person who's dead, there is nothing that is of interest to him or her, obviously. But that's it. That's the point I'm making. It is something that we cannot talk about. And by the way, when you say that things you relate to that are important to you, I agree. But that today we met here in order to discuss what nothing is, and that's what we're doing. Now you're saying that might not be important, but I'm saying it is important because that's why we're here. Now, if you're a physicist, right? If I say to you, before you measure the particle in quantum mechanics, say, where does that particle exist? Is it something before you measure it? This is, I think, a legitimate question, which you need to deal with, I think.
No, not necessarily. Because before I measure the particle, the question, where does it exist? It implies that there is a particular point or place in time where
exactly.
But this is the wrong question to ask about quantum systems.
It's my question. I know it's the wrong question because there's no answer, but I'm asking it.
So you probably cannot expect a meaningful answer for the question that is not meaningful.
Well, it's a meaningful question for something that cannot be explained, but I'm asking it because it's a legitimate question. Now, it's not answerable for various reasons, but physicists do need to think about it. If they don't want to, that's fair enough. You don't want to, I don't care, I'm going to measure, that's all right. But I coming along and say, well, look, there's a problem here. Can you please tell me? And you say, I can't. Is that fair enough? You can't. But it's a question.
It's a legitimate question in the sense that all that we experience directly is our microscopic world, in which we have this perception of places, and we can abstract them as maybe points in space. So we want to nail everything to this place. But if you are a physicist, you have to follow the math, and you have to follow the evidence. And the evidence tells you that for quantum systems, this is not a good abstraction. of a point or specific place.
So
So
there
you
are,
have to use other abstraction.
so there are questions I must not ask. I cannot ask.
So you are starting from this, but
No, I want to know, are there questions I cannot ask physicists? Are there questions I cannot ask priests? Are there questions that I can't answer because they don't want to answer them? They don't know. I just out of interest.
If you don't know if or if the question does not make sense, it's two different situations. The question can be 100% legitimate and meaningful, but you may not know the answer. But there are questions that just don't make sense. So as if you're asking about a specific place for quantum particle, this question does not make sense until you measure its position, and tentatively you can say that after the measurement it's bounded between this and this. Still you cannot know exactly where, but you can bound its position. But that's all that you can say.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you very much, Michael. We're going to get back to you, I'm sure. Thank you, Michael.
And time back to nothing. It's my email.
Nothingness. You're still there, Michael.
Okay.
I know you're there.
Well, all right.
I know
all
you're
right.
there. So you can't escape. I can see the yellow thing. Claudio.
Yes, interesting topic. Earlier on, you said that human beings are central or unique in regards to existence or nothingness, or right. We have ontological worth, right? So if you take the human being, you have to also consider their, their thoughts, their emotions. Nothingness can serve as a causal agent to thoughts, emotions, and human actions, right? You gave two examples earlier, like going to a cafe and drinking coffee without cream, or there being no coffee present, right? So that can serve as if I'm used to drinking coffee, let's say with cream, my espresso, which I'm not, I drink it without cream, but then I wouldn't be able to enjoy my experience of drinking that cup of coffee, or I can tell the pretty lady behind the counter, okay, goodbye, I gotta go somewhere else. So that nothingness, that absence of the cream, or the absence of the coffee is something, right? It causes human action, human emotions, human thoughts, right? When somebody dies, a loved one, that nothingness, if he becomes nothingness, right? Even that is significant, assuming you don't believe in souls or the afterlife, right? So that's, if it falls into death, if it falls into the set of nothingness, is also substantial. It's important because it sets in motion the bereavement process in the people who remain alive, and it can cause all types of actions like the execution of wills, practical matters, right? And some might disagree with you. If death means nothing to the deceased, like you believe, but there's people who disagree with that because those dead people, they're missing out on future goods. So the absence of those future goods, he's missing out on something, affects the dead person in that way, even though he's not around to think about it. Even empty space, like for example, the universe, only a small percentage is made up of matter. It's mostly made up of empty space, but we know that that empty space is significant, right? It's important because it's pervaded by quantum fields, and we know the importance of quantum fields and quantum fluctuations. It brings universes into existence. Universes, right? It gives mass to quantum particles, so that's important too. And if you say that, I agree with you when you said that something cannot come out of nothing. So that could mean either that there's something that is eternal, that's everlasting, or there has to be an infinite chain of causes or contingent events. It's got to be either one or the two, right? If you can't have absolutely nothing, even things like Ayala said, you know, if the insignificant things fall into the set of nothingness, even that insignificance is the insignificant things in life can be significant because it allows you to spend your time more wisely and allow you to realize what's important and what's not important in life. So even the insignificant things, if they do fall into the set of nothingness, is something very important. So I agree with you. This nothingness is important, and it's important to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Vika, hi. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. I'm so excited my turn has finally come.
Sorry, it's taking a long time to get round. Poor James is sitting there waiting so patiently. He thinks I can't see him typing, but I can. You little devil, I can see you typing down there.
Right. I can see nothing.
No, you're right.
So thank you very much, Ron. I'm going to say something. You may or may not think anything of what I have to say, but anyways, there goes nothing. I would like to pay homage to the father of nothingness, Rumi, who some of you may have heard of his philosophy and of his poetry. He had a great influence on philosophers such as Hegel, Eckhart, Kant, and a few others who were interested in the matter of nothingness and mysticism and such. And I would like to present you with a very short poem of Rumi. He says, چون نیستی تو محض اقرار بود، هستی تو سرمایه انکار بود. هر کس که ز نیستی ندارد بویی، کافر میرد اگر چه دیندار بود. Why did I decide to read the Sundari for you? Because I think words have significance, and I wanted to present you with the exact words that he wrote his poetry. And the meaning of this this small portion that I read for you is, when your nothingness is absolute, is the absolute acceptance, your being is the wealth of ignorance. Whoever who's not touched a scent of nothingness will die a non-believer, even if they think that they believed. So you can translate the non-believer or believer into someone who has the knowledge, who has accumulated knowledge of life, or who has not. And with that, one thing that I find very, very important in the philosophy and matter of nothingness is the beautiful feelings that it gives me in the sense of detachment. And I want to bring that because it's very important how we translate detachment. I can translate detachment in so many different ways. But here is what I'm going to give you. If I am very detached to everything that I have accumulated in life, if I'm attached to the clothing that I wear, to the beliefs that I have, to knowledge that I have earned, it closes my mind into everything else that is out there. It closes my mind to all the knowledge that is out there, and my tiny little brain has not had the time or the power to accumulate anything and absolutely anything from that. So this attachment that I have, that everything that I have in my life puts me in the box, closes the lid of that box on me, and I become me. Now, I want to go back to what you said about zero. I really appreciate it when you brought zero. Let's start with number one. Number one is a powerful number. It's very close to nothing, and yet it can make big difference in everything. I take number one, and then I put a zero and absolutely nothing beside it. It makes a 10. I put 2, it makes 100. I put 6, it makes 1,000,000. I put 7, it makes 10 million. And again, I'm going back to what they said. You may get annoyed with what I'm saying, but these are things that when it comes to philosophy are important to me as a person. That number 10 million is 10 million children. It's 10 million children that right now are dying of famine in the country that I was born in the country that Rumi was born in. Around the world, there are millions of people that are suffering. But how I'm going to play this into philosophy? Look at me and you. We're sitting in our rooms, connecting with each other. I'm about half a meter away from the screen of my laptop. There is nothing in between, and there is nothing beyond. We think we have a friendship. We think we care for each other. But in this space between us, there's nothing. If I fall and die today, God forbid, if one of you falls and dies today, almost nothing will change in our lives. You don't care. You might get sad that I died. You might remember a few memories of me being in the meetings, but that would be it. And it would be the same for me. Now imagine if we look at this nothingness in between and beyond, what would happen to our humanity? Then suddenly I become a human that cares. Suddenly I become a human that values you as a human being.
He didn't take it.
Can you imagine how drastic that change would be in our lives? And I think that's what's important to me in understanding nothingness. When we look at the philosophy, especially the Eastern philosophy, it has a very special place to bring yourself to go through Zen, to go through a space that you see nothing, you hear nothing, and what you discover in that nothingness is a beautiful thing that gives you the freedom of understanding that you're a human and you're part of humanity, you're part of life, and finding yourself within this life is a beautiful thing. I know it's very idealistic, but I hope to see one day that at least some would come to that space, that place of love and understanding how beautiful nothingness can be and how close it can bring humanity together. It will change our lives. It will. Thank you.
That was very nice. I agree. I agree with all of that. The space between us is nothingness. It's not nothing, though. And the nothingness is can be a very, very heavy and beautiful thing. But it is something. That nothingness is something. That's the point you made, right? Nothingness is something.
Nothingness is all.
Yeah. So all those zeros that you put on, each zero was different. So somebody didn't like when I did the maths, but each one of those zeros represents something else. The 1 and then the 0 is the 10 and then the 100, and each zero is a different zero. It depends depending where you put it. And 10 million has all those zeros. Each one is different, right? It's where it is that makes that zero mean something, right? Which is the wonderful thing about that numerical system that was actually I spend quite a lot of time in my book about zero, about the different zeros. But anyway, what you said is absolutely right, and I agree, and it was very nice, and you put it really, really well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fika. Thank you.
Thank you.
At last, James, you've been so patient. It's amazing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you're very nice to honor me with your consolations. And thank you, Fika. That was wonderful. I really appreciated what everyone had to say today. It was great discussion. And Olga, the very first speaker, I don't know if it was Olga, but it was this, the very analytical criticism, refutation. I thought she was excellent. Coming from a point of view similar to yours. And then hope I haven't been cut off because I can't hear myself. So I feel bad about that. As a matter of fact, I think my computer froze. Yeah.
Oh, you've gone off. You've become nothingness. Are you there? Oh, that's a really frightening picture you have there, I gotta tell you. James, have you gone? Have you disappeared into the nothingness? Come back, come back. Okay, we're going to get back to you soon. We're going to move on to Terry, who I saw was a Wittgenstein fan. Right?
Ron, first of all, thank you for taking on this tough topic. However, I'm suspecting that you're going to regret saying that, quote, Wittgenstein was wrong.
I knew you'd hate that. Everybody hates that.
That is really, excuse me, ballsy. But anyway, no. Yes, thank you for hosting, and I'm enjoying it. Great discussions and points. I want to follow up on some points that were made, but I think William, for me, it came the closest, and the word that came out was contextualize. And language is a game. So I'm with Wittgenstein. And so like bridge and chess, well, in conversing and attempting to convey ideas and philosophies to our fellow humans, we engage in this game of language. And so if the group will indulge me, I will offer an explanation of how I will use the word nothingness. I'm not saying it's going to fit for the physicists or others, but I see it as a concept, and how I want to use it is not in epistemology, but you hinted at ontology, and specifically the ontology of being. And for me, in my studies, what I've been drawn to is the existentialists. And so I think for me, Sartre provided in the being and nothingness, Sartre for me provided an interesting and useful and I think wonderful approach to the question of nothingness as used in being for oneself. For those who have read Sartre, you may understand that there's being in itself, which is the self that exists today, and being for itself is covered under the concept of becoming. And that's about the future. And interestingly enough, Ron, your graphic that you put up for today's meeting, I thought conveyed Sartre's kind of idea of nothingness. You have the eye staring into what appears to be a black hole. I kind of see that as the nothingness, and I'll define the abyss, the void, the ether, that in becoming, in the being for itself and looking forward, it conveys the infinite decisions that we must make in our becoming. As a matter of fact, it's such an overwhelming project, the construction of the self, the being for itself, that he claimed that the initial reaction when you encounter the nothingness that he talks about was nausea. If you recall, when he talked about nausea, when you suddenly realize that you are totally responsible for the creation of you, and you look forward at the infinite number of decisions you're going to have to make, your initial reaction is one of nausea. So whenever the subject, I'm not qualified, I did say I'm not qualified to discuss nothing in the world of physics and quantum mechanics. And so for me, whenever the topic of nothingness comes up, I'm drawn to the existential question of becoming and being for itself. That's how I want to engage in the question of nothingness. But thank you for hosting today.
Terry, did you actually read his novel, Nausea?
Oh, yeah.
It's a great book. Amazing, amazing. I recommend it to everybody. It's thin, but it's very shocking. I think it shows up his philosophy, if I may say so, better than his huge book.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that is wonderful.
I agree. I think, it's tough. It's tough slugging. I think it took me about 4 years to get through it. But anyway,
You gotta
it's
go.
very esoteric.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Terry. Very interesting. Thank you.
You're
John.
a speed reader, Terry.
John, sorry you had to wait so long. You're very patient, and go for it.
Okay, I don't mind. Interesting comments by everybody. And your talk as well. So 2 questions for you. A tree falls, but you don't hear it, and no human does. But what if there are other life forms observing the tree? Did it still fall? Furthermore, do these life forms exist, even though we have never had a chance to observe them? That's the first question.
No and no. Next question.
There's nothingness between me and the desk, but what am I sitting in? Nothingness or nothing?
Well, you're definitely not sitting in nothing. I mean, how could you be? Nothing is the absence of everything. You can't be sitting in the absence of everything. Oh, everything, not the chair, not the room, not the walls, not you. So you cannot be anything to do with nothing, ever. Well, that's my answer. You asked me the question, but I'm not saying, I'm not giving, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just, you asked me a question according to my philosophy, etc. That's my answer.
Thank you.
I think, as I said, my philosophy is largely epistemological. So that if you ask me, if there's something I don't know about, does it exist? For me, the answer is no, it doesn't. How can it if I don't know about it? It might exist for you, but if I don't know, I can't see my way past that to say to you, yes, it does exist if I don't know about it. Which brings us back to the whole business of nothing, where the state of being nothing, which I can't even actually talk about, but there's somebody in the state of being nothing doesn't know, things are not happening. For a dead person, things are not happening. There are no things anyway.
But he doesn't know it, and you don't know it either. You can't say that if you don't hear something, it doesn't exist.
For me,
you don't know if it exists or doesn't.
I do know that it doesn't exist for me. I mean, how can something exist if I don't know about it? For me.
But the word exist is ontological.
I agree. But
okay, so you can't make an epistemological statement on something that's supposed to be objective.
I can't argue with you unless I see you. Anyway, it's not fair because people are waiting. But can I get back?
I was thrown out. I was thrown out of. Okay, I've been there a long time. I was thrown out. Okay, of the camera.
Oh dear. Okay, we're getting to you, John. Those are good questions. Did they help at all?
Yeah, that's what I was asking, more about your philosophy.
Okay. I'm going to get to what I said because that's very interesting. That's a very core part of what I believe. James, are you back? He's really disappeared into nothingness. I mean, seriously gone. Okay, Douglas, are you here?
Yeah, I finally made it. Okay, I was thrown out of the camera. Otherwise, I'd be there earlier.
Okay. I never did anything. I'm completely innocent.
Okay, no problem. I like what you're saying. It makes sense, but here's the thing. Okay, 5 times 5 equals 0. Okay, if you divide, okay, 5 into 5, you get 0. Okay, no, we get 1, but 5 times 5 is 0. 5 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, as a mathematician, I'm telling you, 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. So that's what you get. Okay, if you look at a mathematic formula, that's what you're going to get. Okay, that's one of the things I was going to mention. Then that's okay. That let you know, mathematics proves it that 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay. Now the other thing, Socrates. Okay, for my philosophy. Okay, they asked him why he was so smart. The oracle did, and he said, "You all go around telling people how much you know." And Socrates said, they asked him why he's so smart. He says, "Because I know that I know nothing." So Socrates started the nothingness.
Socrates should have been with us here, by the way.
Yeah,
It would have been good. He was right.
So what we know is a 0. Okay, that's what it looks like. We know very little about anything.
No,
really.
no, I wouldn't know. Very little is not 0.
Or 0. Okay, we can say we know nothing. It's better to say it that way.
The only person who knows about nothing is me.
So we get into what we know is nothing. Okay, and the universe is infinite.
Yeah, but where does it come from?
Yeah. So it makes
okay.
sense.
I won't argue about the maths, which I can. I'll leave that to Terry, who's coming up in a minute.
Right.
Terry, at last. Terry?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Are you talking, Terry? I can't even.
Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you, but I can't see you move. You're frozen into a state of nothingness. Oh, now you've gone. It's even worse. Oh, you're back.
No, I'm back.
You're back. You're back. Oh, what a relief. You're about to get this existential business today is a killer.
I'm having quantum uncertainty problems here. My existence is fading in now.
You are.
Of the many things I could comment on, lots of fascinating conversation here, everybody. You did make one statement that I just had to mention. This is more from I don't know how it plays in, but more from scientific impact of philosophy sometimes. You mentioned the idea that the vacuum is actually a frothing foam of particles popping up all over the place. I believe very common.
I never used frothing. And I never used the other word either.
What was the way you phrased it?
I don't remember, but it wasn't that. I'm going to be very careful.
But you did say the vacuum had something in it from the quantum uncertainty. Am I correct?
Yes. I think it has positive energy or something.
I see. Now you see, this is interesting because here's where I get to be more of the nothing philosopher than you, because I no longer believe that. So I'm actually making the assertion these days that in order to make special relativity completely self-consistent, we have to abandon this idea that the vacuum is a foaming mass of particles coming around, and instead, the very simple change, you suddenly attach that to the energy. Because there's a funny little thing that goes on here. You never see that frothing, foaming everything until you look at it. And when you look at it, you always add a little bit of energy. And if in the absence of that, you see nothing. And every observer can see that nothing exactly the same way because it's nothing. So I'm actually going on a radical direction these days of saying that one of the biggest fallacies of the scientific community of last century is to assign nothing to have everything. And that it's actually the other way around. Same math, almost the same math, but you have to take the math and attach it to the energy. And if you don't put that prerequisite, but actually it makes it simpler. If you don't do that, then like I say, everybody can look at the vacuum and say it really is nothing. That's all it is. The old intuition. So
Terry, are you saying that there's such a thing as in the vacuum, there's absolutely nothing there?
that is exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not only am I saying that, I'm saying that until we understand that concept, we cannot fix general relativity. We cannot make reasonable assertions even about the details of results coming out of the Large Hadron Collider, because we're making misstatements about the nature of the space-time fabric at the level they're already getting at. So this is starting to get kind of detailed. You have to change a lot of things. I was watching somebody was talking about quantum collapse, and I hadn't realized that too goes back to this idea of filling the vacuum with an infinity of things. It's a mathematical error. The mathematical error is a continuum assertion. You say that everything has to be smooth. It just got to be smooth. It can't be anything else. You can't dare talk to me that the vacuum can't be anything but perfectly smooth. As soon as you say that, you're lost. Because you have just said, will make it infinitely smooth for all time. And the amount of nonsense that pops out of that one simple sounding statement is just incredible, because you fill it with an infinity of things as soon as you say it must be infinitely smooth. And this is not a mathematical, I'm not hand waving thing. This is a thing where you actually get the infinity.
I'm hot.
I'm sorry. Yes? Hello?
No, we're with you. Terry, I would never argue with you about physics. Ha ha ha. Never, right? So
I would argue with me about physics. It's just.
So when you say that a vacuum has got nothing in it at all, but nothing at all, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Well, in that case, it's nothingness. It cannot be nothing, because you've got, it has to be, I mean, you're there.
And you can help me with the terminology, because I believe that is, because I'm a little fuzzy on the difference and the distinction, but I believe I understood what you just said. That is exactly what I'm saying, that it is nothingness. However, we as things with positive energy are able to define a set of relationships in which we can make statements. We're really just talking about relationships, and then with this vacuum is one of those relationships. So, but as I say, to my amusement, we're talking about the nothing, but I would have to go one up on you on your previous statement, if you still agree with it, that no, this is the source of a lot of trouble in physics. There's a reason why we've had a century of half century of stasis. And it has to do with mathematics, and the mathematics in particular of nothing, the idea of the vacuum. And like I say, this connects into real physics. This gets to be where it's not just an abstraction. You actually have to change the basics. Well, not change it. Special relativity is missing a couple pieces. And the way that they're missing these pieces comes out about how these things interact with each other. A very specific part. There's an idea that's been known for oh gosh, decades. Speed of light could go in two different directions and you wouldn't be able to tell. You could have an infinite speed of light in one direction and an almost zero speed of light in the other direction, and there's no way to tell. Well, it turns out there's a reason for that, because that's part of this fabric of how what we are makes the vacuum look the way it does. So this is not it's not a fake effect, it's a real effect. So that's an addition. I kept asking physicists that. I said, this has got to be known. This is algebra. This is not some weird complicated math. This is literally algebra. The age gradient is equal to minus v over c squared, which is about as simple of equation as you can imagine. Although you wouldn't believe what I had to go through to get to that simple equation. It's like, oh, that's velocity. But when you add this in, once you make the argument, you can't undo it, because if you accept Lorentz contraction, you have to accept the age gradient. As soon as you do that, reality changes a little bit. So, I guess my point is that this is your fault, Ron. You're the guy who got me going down this whole nothing thing. So if anything comes of this, which I think it will.
I've been blamed for
Um,
many things.
Well, you can you can get some blame for this one because I do seem to be getting a little bit of traction on some areas. And like I say, there are points where this gets to be important. It's a big difference between nothingness in the vacuum and a frothing mass, which is my term, the Planck foam. That's why I say frothing. That's one of the things. That would actually be the extremum of the worst possible, least real, most faith-based mathematics in existence. And it is, it's a faith. You can have faith in mathematics, just absolutely like a religion. It must be this way. The equations must be the foundation of physical reality, whether I have already evidence for it or not. And it takes you down some interesting paths. So, and I've yacked enough.
Thank you very, very much. That was very interesting. James, you're back.
Yes, I am. I've been having trouble with my computer.
I thought you disappeared into nothingness and that was it.
Yeah, well, who
You're
knows?
back,
This rig may go into nothingness soon.
No, which
Yeah.
proves you can come back from nothingness.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the presentation. I don't know if anybody heard anything that I said before because it froze. I really liked the first speaker, and because she was so analytical, I thought she was a good, that was Ayala, thank you. And also, Mark had a really great presentation. When William said, I thought was really useful. He said that he thought that you were concerned about puzzles of usage rather than puzzles of reference. And so I think that is probably a cogent linguistic kind of reference to what you've been doing. When you use the word I cannot imagine, you use that as a kind of like a marker for an assertion. Nothingness has that nothingness always has an object. I think was one case, but this the object doesn't have to be known. Nothingness is just simply kind of like it's definitely like a universal, both linguistically and metaphysically. So I think that's sort of the first thing I noticed. You seem to feel that metaphysics is an absolute. So it's like your presupposition. Overriding presuppositions, metaphysics is absolute. Like existence is assumed to be an absolute demand. In other words, because there is existence, it demands conformance, absolute conformance. So if there is existence, there can't be an imaginary future. If there is existence, there can't be an imagination of one's own death. If there is existence, there, and so on and so forth. So there's all these all of these assertions that are based on that magical presupposition. Go ahead, Ron.
No, just that one point about can't imagine one's own death. One can. One can't imagine being dead. One can imagine dying, or one can imagine that there will come a time when ... But imagining not existing is impossible.
In a subjective sense. And I think that's another kind of issue that I have with everything. But of course, that's an issue that everybody has. Like a lot of people have come up against some anti-subjective kind of notions in basically objecting to various things. But I think that's the subjective standpoint is extremely limited, and you're basically reflecting that. So anyway, so the main thing here is that the existence is assumed to be or pre-assumed along with the presumption is that metaphysics is absolute and that existence is assumed to be an absolute demand. And like an demand for an empirical everything, so that everything has to be empirically substantiated in order to be part of existence, and anything in existence needs to, or that any comment or utterance, this is very linguistic, like the utterance about existence has to be empirical, as if existence were not, when you talk about existence objectively, you flip it and then say that everything, then you assume that everything has to be empirical. Nothing is, I just wanted to state, yes, nothing is a useful universal. And it occurred to me that there's possibility of a previous infinity. Some people have talked about infinities, or infinity, but there could have been other infinities. In other words, there could have been an infinity before any of that exists today. There could be an infinity that will exist after whatever people think are infinities today. So, on death specifically, what is, and I don't want to debate over what you said, because I recorded something different on my page after I heard you, but death is part of what, I can imagine a world in the future. And of course, this is a different argument, for another Sunday, for another meeting that was had at another meeting, is whether anything can occur in the mind that is in the future. And of course it can. We constantly think about the future. We constantly, and not only in the mind, because the mind is basically a way of cognizing being. It's a way of cognizing nothing, but it's in the sense that Mark was talking about, like they're actually a coexistence of that is necessary for understanding, for Hegel's system, at least, of understanding becoming. And I guess the linguistic aspect is perhaps the worst one for me, because I think as a linguist, as a linguistic philosopher, and I hear that whenever you talk, I assume that you're a semanticist. In other words, you only care about the semantics in words, and the semantics in words, and your subjectivity form a kind of linguistic solipsism. So that's kind of like the filter that I hear you through. Although I try to listen to everybody, and I thought the discussion, what you create is this discussion, many-faceted discussion of analytical, religious, and you have a slight lack of patience with the religious objections, but sometimes, but this idea of a semantical distinction being much more important than any kind of analytical distinction is that the most suspicious part, one of the two suspicious parts of your semanticism. The other is the subjectivity, the Cartesian-based point of view that everything has to come from me. If I'm ever going to find out what is the reality of anything, it's going to have to be me talking about it. Nobody else is going to be, or nothing else is going to be able to determine what a reference point between me and an object is. So that subjectivist point of view is the second problem, I think. So I hate to be negative. I just feel so negative today. And after being, I had a pretty good day until my computer actually broke down again. But that was my main point. I'm sorry if it seems very negative.
No, negative is quite good in the circumstances where we are at the moment, in all senses.
Right.
Thank you very much, James. I've got a lot to argue with you about that, but I won't at the moment. It's we've been here quite a while, but thank you very much. I want to get back to Ayala. I think he made some very, very good points, of which touch on basis of my philosophy. I think we were talking about ontology and epistemology, right?
Yeah.
Go on then, go for me. Attack me.
No, we can't say that because I don't see something or hear something, that's subjective, but ontologically, objectively, it doesn't exist. We don't know if it does or doesn't. And science here is about something empirical. Since James mentioned science's empirical study, the problems, though, that science does recognize with assertions of existence and non-existence are, one, when we form a null hypothesis, we always form it in a negative sense, in a negation. We are trying to prove that something doesn't exist. And so it's always, if we find a relationship that is significant according to some statistical coefficient, whatever, we can say that in such and such probability, there's such and such percentage that it does exist, but there is such and such percentage that it doesn't. So we never make really by binary assertions, it does or it doesn't. If we don't find any relationship, any validation, we can say we cannot support that hypothesis of existence. So we cannot support means we don't know. That's how science works. And it's very careful to not include, for example, the tool observed with the observation, a tool of observation with the observation itself, right? So because we know that what science looks usually is under the lamppost, stuff that can be measured, but there is all this stuff around that can't be measured. Can we say that it doesn't exist? No, we can't make any assertion. No, that's all. I just, that was my point.
Okay, if I got to make some points here. Basically, what you're saying is that anything can exist, and that's problematic. That's not science. Anything can exist because we don't know that it doesn't exist. That is hugely problematic. Anything can exist, but it can't. What can
the possibility, the mathematical possibility is that it can,
anything.
But socially, but as a society, we have to pretend a lot of stuff so we can make our reality smoother. we pretend that things exist even if they don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't get out of the house in the morning because you might be run over. We live by convenience, not by any proved reality or proved truth.
That's true.
And by our beliefs, yeah.
When we walk out of the house, we assume that we will not fall into a hole, that the street in front of us will be there. We assume that. According to you, it might not be. Right? I mean, if anything can happen, that's problematic because that's the end of science altogether. Anything can happen. The sun can fall on the earth tomorrow because we don't know it can't. That's problematic.
It doesn't have the same certainty level. We operate on certainty levels, not on absolutes.
Okay, I agree, but we have to work out the certainties. I mean, if I don't know, something, how can you tell me that it exists? If I don't know, and you say you know, if I don't know, you don't tell me. I don't know. Where does it exist for me? How can it? I leave that hanging. Okay, so the problem of epistemology for me is the point from where I come from. After a long time of worrying about the other side, ontology, I realized the ontology without epistemology doesn't make sense to me, because I can't possibly, if I don't know it, the existence, it doesn't mean anything. I have to know, right? That's what I've reached at this time.
By inference, Ron, we make a lot of guesses or educational guesses on the basis of inference. For example, as I'm a psychotherapist, I make inferences on what is subconsciously bothering somebody, usually myself. We can't directly observe that. But that's how, because otherwise, again, we will be paralyzed. We have to take chances. And those of us who are more rational look at probabilities. And when you have a high probability of something to happen, and if the cost is high, you want to avoid it, and the other way around. That's life.
I agree. Thank you very much, Ayla. Very interesting. I hope you come next time as well. Who I've got hands up, but I'm not sure they're really hands, or they're hands that were there before and are not really there. And
yeah, James K.
James, yes. You've got James, yes. No.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Can I say my piece now?
Yes, please do. Do you have a camera?
Okay, you're talking.
What you look like?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay, James. You
exist. You're talking about nothingness.
Yes.
And I haven't heard anybody talk about what it is, in life as you live it, because objectively you see the nothingness all around you. You see things that were here yesterday and no longer here today. So there's a constant process of change. Maybe the universal becoming is occurring, because I have relatives, friends that were here a while back and they're no longer here. And that's the nothingness. Did they just go into a state of nothingness? And at the same time,
yes.
Right. And that's objectively, that's the nothingness that is occurring in the world, right? In the real world that we're living in. You can't deny that, right? That things do change and things turn into nothing from what they were before. And subjectively, we also experience the sense of nothingness within the our realms of experience of desire. You know, when I see people eating lunch, you know, why are they eating lunch? Because their stomachs are empty. That's the experience of nothingness there. When you're thirsty, you need water. So this in the world of desire, and in this world of desire, it's based on this lack, this sense of lack in our lives that drives our desire to fill that lack with something, right? That keeps us alive. And we do everything in our power to make sure that we stay alive. We maintain our sense of being alive by filling our lives with all kinds of things, all kinds of desires that we need, and maybe some things that we don't need, we just want, right? And ontologically, we are also trying to, experience the sense of our being, perhaps within this meeting with other people. We are kind of getting a sense of fulfillment in the ontologically, that each of us, experience ontologically that we are someone who exists, right? And matter and so forth. And I can also envision the future in which I will not exist. I will no longer be alive. And isn't that kind of death, the end of our lives, possibility of nothingness? And we could fill it up with beliefs in the hereafter of God, or some philosophical idea that is going to lead to something, right, when we die. And that ontological, that's an ontological experience of ourselves as well, that we are still going to exist, not just now, but in the future. So
we can imagine all sorts
for me,
of
this
stuff.
kind of what's that?
We can imagine all sorts of stuff, but it's what does it mean? I mean, you can imagine what the future will be, but you'll never get to the future, because the future, when you get to it, will be the past. You can always know what's going to happen, but it might not happen.
Well, sure, yeah, you're right. Wait, but you could, why do people, believe in all kinds of religions and ideas about what the reality is that's going to, take care of this uncertainty about what's going to happen to you in the future. And that uncertainty includes this sense of nothingness, that we may end up being nothing, right? Depending on how much you believe in something that will fill that up. So that's so this kind of nothingness is objectively true, and also subjectively true. And it's an ontological question that you related to epistemology as well, in terms of knowledge. So we want certainty of knowledge that we're going to, your lives will not be just empty and nothing, right? People with feeling sense of emptiness is this kind of lack of sense of uncertainty. Maybe the anguish that Sartre was talking about, this uncertainty. But that also gives us, uncertainties also gives us our sense of freedom to decide how we feel in our sense of meaninglessness, or this sense of emptiness. Yeah. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. Claudio.
Yes, Ron. Earlier you said that when we die, nothing happens. Now, okay, there is some truth.
No. I said when we're dead, nothing happens, not when we die.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes. When we're dead, nothing happens. Right.
To us.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. To us. Yeah. To us. Okay. Now, if ontological materialism is true and dualism is false, there is some truth to it, because on a macro level, because we lose our personal identity, our subjective experiences, our memories, our consciousness, right? It's lights out, right? We draw a blank. But there's a different type of reality to human existence beside the macro level, right? There's also the quantum reality of human existence, right? The quantum reality. And what are we? We are a collection of atoms, right? We also, on the quantum level, we follow the law. We also follow the laws of quantum mechanics. We are ruled by them. Now, what happens to our atoms, if you look at it that way, when we die, right? They continue to exist for another, let's say, 3,000 trillion years, right? They become part of plants. This is science. It's not religion.
It's not science.
But something happens. You said nothing happens, right?
No, it doesn't to you. No. Your consciousness is gone. Whatever happens to bits and pieces has got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but we're not just conscious.
Yeah, but you're not aware. You're not aware of bits and pieces that go on around you. That's it. That's my point about nothing. It's gone. What happens around you is what other people see, not you. It's gone. That's all I said. It's gone.
Okay, well,
there isn't.
But one more thing. Scientists do not know the essence of atoms. They do not know the true essence, the nature of atoms. So that's open to debate. It's not what you said is it's not 100% certain. It's not unanimous.
Nothing I said ever say is 100% certain, ever.
Right.
Okay. I would never say that, never.
Right. Okay. No, I'm just saying that
I'm certain about that, Ron.
There's different types of realities. I'm just saying there's different types of realities to human existence. There's the quantum level, then there's the macro level, the biological, and where you have consciousness.
Has nothing to do with us whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Thank you. Douglas, are you still waiting there? Douglas, are you there? I see a yellow hand.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good.
Okay. It was a very interesting conversation, 0 versus 0. Okay. And the thing to me that's interesting is that you can't put a value on anything, really. That's what it shows. That when you put, a value on I lost them. Okay. When you put a value on something, it means there's nothing. So when it comes to nothingness, that's what what Sartre was saying, but being in nothingness. But when you put a value on something, that we should not put anything to anything. That nothing means nothing, and so from understanding what you're saying is that the nothingness is but it's also semantics. It's the way we say a lot of these things, okay, to somebody else that may not understand.
Thank you very much, Douglas. I think we've never had such a long chat. Everybody's been dying to talk about nothing. I got 99 plus messages on chat, and which means that we missed out on what people were thinking. I've got to read through it tomorrow. You realize what you've done to me, right? I've got to read through this chat and see what you all said. But actually, it's the longest chat we've ever had. I mean, chat typing out stuff. You were so impatient you had to get it out, but that's fine. I enjoyed it very, very much with you. I just want to say it seems that every time we think we found something, but no, sorry. It seems that every time we think we have found nothing, something turns up, which I think is what happened today. And thank you very, very much for coming. I hope to see you next month, first Sunday of the month, where we'll have another light chat as we did today, and etc. Thank you for coming, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
This was great. Thank you.
If you
Ron,
want...
I did have one question for James. Who is that incredibly creepy guy in your background?
Oh, that's a painting by Courbet. It's and it looks like it does look a little bit like Johnny Depp.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but he was Courbet was born, died way too early for it to have been Johnny Depp. And actually, it's a self-portrait by Courbet.
This is- okay.
It's called I forget the Desperate Man. The Desperate Man. Yeah.
Can you move?
Was that?
Can
Was
you
that?
move a little bit to the
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So we can
Everybody wants to look at Johnny
Was
Depp.
that?
I
Was that
understand.
one of his better days?
When he was younger, yeah. Courbet, when he was very young, he looked like that. Yes. He got fatter cheeks when he became middle-aged. And he created many wonderful paintings, completely in his own style, one of the fathers of Impressionism.
Very good. Very interesting. You always got interesting backgrounds, James.
No, thanks.
Well, goodbye,
Okay.
everybody.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See
Thank
you
you very
next
much, Ron.
time. All the very best to you all. Bye.
Likewise.